and welcome to episode 27, season 4 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I am Sam Fetterman, that is Jonathan Lidskin, and Chris Tadinga is here with us from Road to the Garden to talk about what was one of the biggest Big East games of the season so far. The intro music is brand new. We had a little bit of a crisis about that moments ago off air. I wanted some certain songs. Then I realized that the United States federal copyright law existed, and then we had to pivot to this. But here we are. And UConn got Donovan Clingan back, and the defense immediately was back to its best. Let's go around the room. Jonathan, what were your main takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit sloppy at times, sometimes a lot sloppy, actually. But UConn's defense, like you said, it's back. Donovan Clingan completely changes how that team plays defense. And it was a very clear game plan from the Huskies and Danny Hurley. I think it was it Kamani who had the scout tonight? I think they mentioned on the broadcast, Sam.
I wasn't focused enough on the broadcast because I was watching 8 other games, but yes.
I believe Kamani was the one on the scout tonight, but it was very clear that UConn's plan, as a lot of teams do, was to run Creighton off the line. The Blue Jays were 2 of 10 in the first half from 3. I don't think they made a field goal for the first 8 minutes of the second half. And it's a lot easier to defend when you have Donovan Clingan's rim protecting ability inside for more than 0 minutes a game.
Yeah, it was just really impressive how much UConn was able to do on the defensive end, because Creighton's offense is predicated, and Creighton's offense and defense are predicated on the same principles of shooting the three, shooting it well, and getting it into the paint and attacking the basket. And today, there were a lot of those mid-range fadeaways for Trey Alexander that just weren't falling. And on the other side, it was mid-range jumpers for Cam Spencer that were falling. And Stephon Castle spinning on Stephen Ashworth and attacking the basket. And it was just a dominant performance. And we'll get to that in a moment, what I thought was the key. But Chris, what did you see?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. It's a bummer from a Creighton side of things, but more than anything, I think it's a testament to UConn. They took away every single thing that Creighton wanted to do on the offensive end. They pressured the ball really well, and that makes Creighton guards really uncomfortable, which is a whole nother conversation. I don't think Stephen Ashworth has done what he needs to do for this team to reach their full potential. He was their leading scorer tonight, I think, but that's misleading. UConn looks all the way like a national championship type of contender to me.
Yeah, and for me, the key to this game was it felt like Creighton couldn't end UConn's possessions. A shot would go up, and UConn got 21 offensive rebounds. Creighton only had 26 defensive rebounds. That's nearly double the amount of possessions. That's not the correct answer, but that's about double the amount of offensive rebounds as you should be giving up on a bad night. 10 offensive rebounds allowed is a bad night for most teams. Creighton gave up 21 today. Stephon Castle had 3. Tristan Newton had 4. It felt like every single possession Castle was in there making things happen. And I thought he only scored 5 points and he was 2 for 12 from the field. But this was one of Stephon Castle's best games from an impacting winning perspective. He did all of the Andre Jackson things tonight.
Yeah, and Creighton was kind of allowing him to shoot the ball for the majority of the game, and he made him pay with one of the big threes, and he didn't shoot it well overall. 2 for 10, or I don't have the box score up in front of me. 2 for 12. There it is. But yeah, you're right. He did everything else super, super well. I mean, he's a really impressive freshman.
I mean, nobody shot well in this game. 35.7% from UConn, 34.6% for Creighton. And that's honestly higher than it should be because the game was over with 10 minutes left, and then Creighton started hitting some more shots. But 48-32 on the glass. UConn only turned it over 7 times. That's just not something Creighton does. And if Creighton's not going to make shots, this is now a couple times where we've just seen Creighton's offense completely disappear. Are you concerned about Creighton against these elite teams?
Jonathan, I'll let you take this one first.
Okay, I'll start. So I am a little bit, and I think, Sam, we talked about this a little in like November, December. Like, we're concerned about how I guess the lack of physicality from Creighton. Like, Nemhard and Kaluma were really good at just using their bodies to get in the lane and make plays for themselves or for others at times. It doesn't feel like Ashworth and Shireman and even really sometimes Trey Alexander can do that consistently. I think Creighton's going to end up being way too reliant on threes. And yeah, sure, when March comes around, it's probably not a team that you want to have to scout on one day in the second round with the way they play, because they are pretty unique. But at the end of the day, like, it could be ugly, like, at times where they just get completely punked, I think is the word you used, Sam.
Yeah, I said punked, and just physically, they were no match. They were little boys out there tonight. And that's nothing against this Creighton team. I was very high on them in the preseason. I think that they are going to be a 4 seed or a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, but I don't see them as a team that at this moment in time can make a deep run as currently constructed, because they don't have the physicality. They don't have the bodies to withstand that type of grind. And honestly, I could even see them lower than like a 5 seed, because the Big East is going to eat that thing up and spit it out. That's just the type of league that they're in. Maybe if Creighton were in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, a league that's a little bit weaker, they would be able, or the ACC, sorry, Pac-12 or the ACC, which are not quite as physical as the Big East, they could get like a 2 seed. They would run those leagues. They would kill those leagues. And that's because they're a really good basketball team with really good basketball players. But the Big East has really good basketball players and also really great athletes. And Creighton only has one.
It's also not as easy for McDermott in conference to just like out scheme guys. Like, he's a really good X's and O's guys, but he's been in the league for a while now. These coaches know what he runs. And, you know, we see in March pretty consistently his stuff works because teams don't see it. But these Big East coaches are all great, and they all know what he does.
It's the best coached league in the country. It's Dan Hurley. It's Rick Pitino. It's Shaka Smart. It's
even the middle tier. I mean, Sean Miller is there, and he's great.
Stephen Holloway. I mean,
Cooley
Stephen Holloway took St. Peter's to the Elite Eight. Like, what?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think they still have the upside that I always kind of assumed they did. It just is very matchup dependent, more than I thought. If they got a really dominant team that's not as imposing physically, they can still compete. They can be right there. Like if they got Purdue, for example. Purdue's a great basketball team. I think Creighton actually matches up okay against Purdue.
I agree.
So it really is dependent, but yeah, you guys hit it kind of right on the head there. It's all about the physicality. Ryan Nemhard, Arthur Kaluma leaving, it is what it is. I think Mason Miller does a fine job in his stead, but Ryan Nemhard is worse off, and Creighton's worse off without him. That was a really great match for each other with the pieces around him, and now he's on a worse Gonzaga team, and Creighton's suffering as well. That was just a kind of one of those bummer moments of the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Nemhard was one of the toughest dudes in the Big East year in, year out. He was only there for 2 years, but it felt like he was there for 5, because it just felt like he identified with everything that you identify with the Creighton program over the last 5 to 7 years. He was just a continuation of the previous point guards that they had in terms of toughness. And he leaves and he goes to a program that's not known at all for toughness. If anything, they're known for the opposite of toughness by some people.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work out. And again, I think both Nemhard and Creighton would say that they're a lot worse off. And we discussed this after the Gonzaga game, after the Gonzaga UConn game, where Creighton is simply worse off and Ryan Nembhard is playing terribly for the worst Gonzaga team in decades.
Yeah. I still think it's interesting because every year, obviously, the NCAA tournament, we get what ifs. Like 2 years ago, one of the biggest what ifs for me is like, what if that Creighton team was healthy? Like they had Kansas.
I
on
had
the
them
ropes.
in the Final Four.
They had Kansas on the ropes, and like with Nembhard or Kalkbrenner, that team might get to the Final Four.
All right. What was I going to say?
What were you going to say?
I lost my train of thought, but
by the way, Sam, I'm sure you saw this, but UConn jumped like 10 spots on defensive efficiency.
Yeah, UConn jumped 10. UConn jumped, I believe, 12 spots in adjusted defense today. It really is impressive. And the interesting thing for me is that like we've seen a lot less of solo ball for UConn over the last couple of weeks, as we've seen just more and more of these starters kind of filling their way through, and we're seeing more of Jalen Stewart. He played 7 minutes today. We're kind of seeing UConn go to what's kind of being a 7-man rotation for most of the game, and a little bit of Stewart, a lot less solo ball. They're maybe a lot thinner than they want to be come March, but there's no debate right now that Purdue and UConn are the two best teams in the country.
I think I'd probably agree with that. I don't know if I'd go as far to say there's no debate, but I think I would agree with that. I'm kind of surprised, honestly, by this solo ball, like less minutes. I didn't think he was bad when they needed him in the starting lineup when Castle was hurt.
No, I didn't think he was bad either. I just think that Castle does so much.
Yeah, I mean, if UConn is going to be fine playing like when teams play him like that, like what are you supposed to do?
My one concern from this game is UConn didn't look good offensively for about 30 of the 40 minutes. And Creighton, I don't really think is. I mean, they're a good defensive team.
They're a good defensive team. They just don't turn you over.
And they didn't. And that's the thing about Creighton. They can't go on those big runs because they don't force turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't end possessions. And when you don't end possessions with either a turnover or a defensive rebound, you're not going to stop teams from going on big runs. And UConn goes on a kill shot in the first half, and the game's never close again.
And yeah, Creighton forced 2 live ball turnovers in the first half of this game, which was, pretty odd for Creighton. And then it's like they just didn't know how to play in transition. Like they kicked it out to Mason Miller, who rushed to open transition 3 and was not even close, and then kind of fumbled another one as well. Yeah, they're a terrible transition team, which is just not like other Creighton teams.
Yeah. So Chris, we're almost done here with this game. Creighton's next one is on the weekend. They will take on Seton Hall at the Rock. That's a big game for both teams. Where do you think, and it's another super physical team. How do you think Creighton stands? How can they recover?
Man, I would be hard pressed to bet against Seton Hall against anyone right now. They look fantastic. Shaheen Holloway was kind of chirped earlier this year. He said he had the best backcourt in the league. Now you look at it with Dawes and Richmond and Adaiwusu playing so well, and it's like, well, maybe he wasn't as crazy as we all anticipated when he said that. I would take Seton Hall, but I still think Creighton can compete and be around in pretty much any of these games.
Jonathan, how do you think Creighton can respond game plan wise? What can they do to stop Seton Hall?
I think a lot of it's a mentality thing. Like, you can't really coach toughness. Like, it kind of just has to come from the players themselves. So, like, I know, Sam, I know we talk about, like, player-only meetings as, like, a joke, but, like, the veterans for Creighton need to step up here and kind of get in the locker room with their guys and figure this out, because this team's not playing terrible basketball by any means, but I imagine they're not playing close to what they envision their goals being.
Yeah, like they have a similar profile to last year. It's just so much more extreme when you take out Nembhard, when you take out Kaluma. And again, I think Mason Miller's fine, but they're still super thin.
Yep.
I don't think they've gotten what we thought they would get out of Isaac Trout, and Jonathan and I were both very high on him in the preseason, and really he's only been double figures twice. They need more from him going forward.
Yeah, there was a couple of even Jonathan Lawson, who came over from Memphis. I expected to be a rotation guy and provide a few good minutes every game, and he's kind of fell off and not a part of really anything anymore. And Trout's not getting great minutes, so the bench is not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, and just overall for Creighton, it's not over. They're 13-5. They are 4-3 in a really tough Big East. Their losses are to Villanova, Marquette, and UConn. They have wins over Providence and St. John's. Win this weekend at Seton Hall, and you're right back. Not even like this is a firm tournament team, possibly protected seed. Like there's really nothing to worry about there. We're just saying this team isn't. Maybe they're not the Final Four contender that we thought they were.
Yeah, it's probably going to take at this point a pretty light path for Creighton to get to a Final Four. You're going to have to see a lot of teams that really aren't all that good on the glass, not super physical, like teams that kind of shoot themselves in the foot, which you get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. There's not many of those.
It's going to have to be lighter than it was for them last year when they got Princeton and San Diego State in the second weekend.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chris, for joining. That was really nice. Really nice of you to come on, and make sure to check out all the work that Chris does over at Road to the Garden.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
All right. Let's talk about one of the wilder games that we saw tonight. Dean Wendell is going to join us right now to talk UMass and Loyola. Dean, how are you doing?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Doing good. Another exciting night of college hoops.
I'm sure you watched this game a lot closer than we both did, but it was back and forth down the stretch, and these are two really good teams in the A10.
Yeah, and it's funny because Loyola, obviously Drew Valentine first year in the A10 last year. It's a tough year one for them in the new conference. I think they were bottom. If they weren't dead last,
they were bottom.
They finished 15th.
Yeah. So, and then they reloaded in the portal. They got Adela Kuhn from Dartmouth, Mwamba from Oral Roberts, a lot of portal names. And this is a team that, obviously, it's tough to get worse. A lot of media members, we all thought they were going to improve. And, had that tough start to the non-conference, took a couple bad losses. They were 3-1 coming into this game. UMass was 2-2. And they went up, 6-8 in the first half. And I think a large part of that was due to UMass being without Matt Cross. He had the ankle injury. He had the chipped tooth from the Dayton game when Deron Holmes kind of, got one on him. So their interior presence.
Putting it a little lightly.
What was that?
I think that's putting it a little lightly.
Yeah, for sure. Deron Holmes is, especially in the A10, different kind of animal.
It's like if you dropped Devontae Adams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, he's and it's tough to do in the A10 too, right? Because you guys know that conference, it's one of the best in the country at just cannibalizing itself.
Yeah,
and, having even the best teams are capable of getting knocked off night in, night out. So to have that guy,
we are not far away from Dayton at Gola, but we'll get into that in a minute. Just back on UMass and Loyola today.
Yeah, but so they, their interior presence was good in the first half. Guys like Alston, Desmond Watson, Miles Rubin, who's been a really good freshman for him. He was doing work in the inside in the first half. But, and me covering UMass, what we've seen, me and my people that cover the beat with me, has been this team's toughness and their ability to kind of claw back when they're down 8-10. And despite, Frank Martin, UMass having a lot of freshmen, they've really done a good job of being able to claw back into these games. Whereas last season, obviously it's a totally different team this season than last season. But last season, if a team like that goes down 8-10, they're probably not in that environment in an away game. They're not tightening it. They're probably letting that lead widen and just kind of being out of the game for good.
I agree. I agree. I think this team is a lot closer to the identity of what you would consider a Frank Martin team to be.
Mm-hmm.
They're tough, they're gritty, they play through an elite big man in Josh Cohen. They have some skilled guards. I was really impressed with Jalen Curry tonight. That's a freshman that has a really bright future in this league.
Agreed. That was what my story was about tonight. Jalen Curry took the words out of my mouth. He's even just from non-conference on. I don't know what clicked between non-conference play and A10 play, but his shot selection has gotten better. His, just distribution has gotten better. His facilitating, they're running a lot more plays through him on the ball, as opposed to him just kind of standing and not being a factor on the offense. So him and Cohen played well. The other guards, it was an off night for the other guards. Keon Thompson didn't have a great game. Rasul Diggins, UConn transferred, didn't have the best game. But yeah, they clawed their way back, got it to within 4-3. Cohen hit some good baskets, and then, got down to that last minute where go up 2 and let Philip Alston kind of drive down like a battering ram, misses one, gets the board and one. And then I'm sure, at that point, you guys were tuned in and hits, free throw bottoms in. Loyola wins by 1. Tough loss for UMass, but considering the circumstances, it's not a bad one, I would say.
Yeah, I've really been looking for an excuse to talk about Loyola because I was right. This is a good team. Jonathan and I, we were both right. We both thought this was a really good team. Coming in, I had them in my preseason top 100. I saw them on Saturday at Hagen and fairly impressed by how well they spaced the floor, how well, even though they weren't as good athletically as St. Joe's, they were 41-31 on the glass in that game. And they hit 10 threes. They fought back from down 9 with 6 minutes left when Billy Lang said the game didn't slip away. Still one of the funniest quotes of the A10 season. And regardless of that, we get to this point with Loyola where you have guys like Jaden Dawson, and you have guys like Braden Norris, and these guys can make an impact. And I earlier I said Chris Mann, and I meant Greg Dolan. I get the Cornell guards confused because, let's be honest, I think Brian Earl gets the Cornell guards confused too with how many subs he plays. But I think that Loyola is one of the best teams in this conference because they're deep. They can throw different looks at you. They can really shoot the ball. And they're really, really strong on the interior defensively.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to the Loyola side of this. I wasn't watching this, but following kind of the live updates on Twitter from some people I follow. And, sounded like Josh Cohen was unbelievable. Like, I saw some Loyola people, like, begging to go on a run when he took a quick break on the bench. But I think the key for this Loyola team is they've really gotten back to the Loyola roots. They're not quite as talented as, obviously, some of the past Loyola teams, but they've gotten back to being physical, playing smart basketball. Braden Norris has been way more of himself lately. And then guys like Miles Rubin and Jalen Quinn, who are younger players, but they'll make an impact defensively. Rubin's been really good on the glass lately. Sam, I'm very glad I mentioned him to you in the offseason.
Yes, you did. You mentioned him and his brother.
I really liked his game in high school when he was at Simeon. But yeah, I think this Loyola team is a really good win for them, and they're definitely trending in the right direction and potentially even towards the top 4 seed in the A10.
Yeah. So we kind of touched a little bit on the A10 last night, but Dean, you watch the league a lot closer than we do. I wanted to get some of your input on what's going on around that league. Duquesne is now 0-4. We kind of joked around about it last night, how they never live up to any sort of hype that they have. And just what has gone wrong for the Dukes so far in conference play?
Yeah. I can speak a little bit too, because that was UMass's opener. It was against Duquesne, and they won, I believe, by double digits. It was a win at home.
By 20. Yeah,
at Mullins. The main thing I saw in that game from Duquesne was depth. I think was the most glaring thing, because they have Day-Day Grant and they have Jimmy Clark III, and those are two. You just from backcourt wise, point guard, your 1 and your 2, that's up there for the top 4, top 5 backcourts in the conference. But past that options get slim. And against UMass, I think one of them got into foul trouble. I believe maybe Clark, maybe Grant, one of the two. And from there, just the offense just seemed stagnant. They weren't getting the looks they wanted. And I think, Frank Martin, the defense first philosophy kind of plays into that a little bit too. But when Grant and Clark, when one of them has an off night, or if somebody's in a foul trouble, there's just not a lot of shot makers to bail this team out. And then the front court it's solid. I mean, I know Savrasov, one of the guys from Georgia Southern that they got was kind of like touted as a solid.
Yeah, but he's been bad.
Yeah, over the offseason, it just hasn't really turned out for him.
And they're still kind of waiting on a big impact from Dusan Mahorcic. He has made his return. He returned against Santa Clara about a month ago, but he hasn't really made a big impact yet.
Yeah, so I think front court and depth have been their two biggest concerns. And I think they have a tough stretch coming up. I know they got Joe's Bonaventure on the way. And those are two teams that obviously haven't started off great. I know Bonaventure just took Rhode Island out tonight.
99-64. Just obliterated.
Olean's a scary place, man. Olean, I'm an hour and a half from Olean when I'm here back home. And
so you're in Siberia?
Right now, it seems like it. Yeah.
Because the snow in Buffalo has been wild.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm only like 3 hours from Olean right now.
You're central New York.
I was, by the way, very surprised that it was 3 hours when I looked it up. I thought it was closer to 2, but nope, it's 3.
Yeah, no, you get fooled. It's kind of like I always think Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. Not to go too off track here, but it's like an hour and a half.
It is out there. Holy moly! But regardless, moving forward, I wanted to talk also about a team that has surpassed my expectations. I didn't really think too much of Richmond coming into the season, but they are 4-0. They've won 7 games in a row. Their last 4 of their 5 losses are to top 100 teams. So, and they haven't lost at the Robins Center this year. They're the number 1 team in the country in preventing turnovers, and they are the number 46 defense in the country. What has impressed you about what the Spiders do?
Yeah, and I'm with you. I wasn't really too high on Richmond coming in. They lost Burton. That's obviously a huge loss for him. He went to Nova. And, yeah, I wasn't high on them either. But Jordan King, their guard, he's their leading scorer. He's done a lot for them. All around, perimeter. He's kind of a 3-level guy. He can score from anywhere on the court. But Neil Quinn, I think, watching Richmond play UMass last year, I was in Brooklyn, that first round game where UMass's season ended with like a 25-point loss.
That was the most disinterested basketball I've ever seen maybe anybody play.
Yeah, that was a rough one for me to sit through. It didn't help that was my first conference tournament game. It was, opening day in A10.
Did you just like go home right after that?
Well, no, we had the hotel booked for a couple days after, so thankfully we got to hang around and watch.
You weren't there the whole weekend though.
No, I was there Tuesday. Then we skipped Wednesday to go sightsee, but Tuesday, Thursday I was there.
Yeah. I mean, I only got there Sunday, so.
Yeah, hopefully this year we'll see. I'm hoping to stay.
I'm not there this year. I'm at the Ivy on Sunday.
But yeah, it didn't help. It was Kids Day. There was like 2,500 elementary schoolers here. But anyway, we knew Quinn was good. Quinn was he played second fiddle to Burton that year. But having a guy like that, I mean, not totally like Cohen because Cohen's a little stockier, but having a guy like a 7-footer who can pass and be kind of like the hub of your offense, especially in the A10, kind of brings a new dimension. It's tough for a lot of A10 teams to stop. Teams like Duquesne, tough for them to stop, with an offense like that and a 7-footer like that. So I've been impressed with his play and his ability to kind of be the centerpiece of that team. And it's been a surprising 4-0, but they've looked good. And I think they're right up there at the top 4 double bye in the tournament.
What team that hasn't started well and maybe wasn't highly touted in the preseason do you think is like a sleeping giant? What team do you think could be lurking in the shadows?
That's interesting because there's always, especially in the A10, there's always one or two. I think, I'm not going to go too low,
I know my
but
answer.
I think George Mason starting off 2 and 3. I love Keyshawn Hall. Keyshawn Hall might be like one of my favorite players in the country. The fact, like, he's 6'9", bigger, but he's got guard handles, quickness. I really like the way he plays. And another like first year coach that's kind of came on the scene and surprised people, Tony Skinn, did well in the transfer portal, reloaded. They lost a lot, obviously. English took a lot to Providence, but he's got this roster looking good. And I think they had a couple back-to-back losses. Yeah, they lost to VCU, Richmond, George Washington. But it's kind of Bonaventure and St. Joe's are tough, but they have kind of a more forgiving schedule, once you get into like February. And I think if a couple of these pieces click, like Holland Maddox, I think they could, get hot and maybe
I'm going to go here with Davidson. I think that when Davidson is on, they've looked really good. They've had some stretches this year where I've just straight up been really impressed with what they do. They're a thin team, but I think that their first group is up there with some of the best in the conference. I wouldn't be surprised to see Davidson winning 11 games or something in this conference. And I know that they're 1 and 3, but those were some really tough losses that they took against Rhode Island and GW. Like, they could still come back and win 11 games. Yeah. Sorry, 10 games, not 11, 10. I forgot that it was an 18-game league. I'm used to 20 in the MAC and the Big East. But, Dean, thank you so much for hopping on with us tonight. We'll definitely get you back on to talk A10 once again.
For sure. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Jonathan.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the rest of the college basketball landscape. A top 3 team in the country just pummeled Vanderbilt.
Yeah. National championship contender, Auburn Tigers.
Jalen Williams, 21 points on 7 of 7 shooting.
Did 15
Maybe
in the
the most
first
underrated
half.
player in the country, though, right now is Janai Broome, because this is a legit National Player of the Year contender.
Yeah, he came into the day like top 5 in the Ken Palm National Player of the Year race. Obviously, that's going to be Zach Edey's. Nobody's denying that. But you still got other first-team All-American spots up for grabs, and I'd certainly argue Janai Broome is right there for one of them right now.
Janai Broome is the best defensive player in college basketball, and he's averaging 15 points, 8 rebounds on 55% shooting. This is on a top 3 team in the country.
Would that be 2 out of 3 years that Auburn has the best defensive player in the country?
He might have been the best defensive player in the country last year too.
Bruce Pearl knows how to find bigs that can protect the rim.
Yeah, and like again, I could say this. You could say he was the best defensive player in the country last year, and I wouldn't really bat that much of an eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous what this Auburn team does on a nightly basis. I know they're still without any major wins, but they just pummel people. Like, they walk into any building, anywhere, and just punk you. Their guards are just
so physical,
so balanced,
so deep. They can shoot,
and literally like any lineup works for them.
Because they can switch. Because all of their guys can switch everything.
Yep.
It's just I am consistently floored, impressed. Every word in the dictionary about this Auburn team. 15-2. 15-2 right now.
One of 2 teams in the entire country that is top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency.
The other is Purdue.
The team on my screen right now.
It's Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Bless you.
I was trying to mute myself, but I sneezed before the
That happened to me earlier.
All right, moving forward, LSU hosted Ole Miss tonight and picked up a win. Ole Miss second loss. They're 15-2. They shot 18 of 41 from inside the arc, 6 of 24 from beyond the arc, and LSU hit 10 threes. Jordan Wright had 27 points. LSU is not a tournament team. This is a bad loss for Ole Miss.
Can't run from regression. Ole Miss has found that out over the last couple weeks. I just straight up don't think this is a great basketball team, Sam.
I don't disagree.
Like, they don't play much defense. Offense is just kind of okay. And, like, I kind of thought they would be good if they had their full kind of a custom of players ready to go at the start of the season, but they didn't. And, they have a little bit of talent, but compared to the rest of the SEC, I think it's still going to take Chris Beard some time.
All right, Kentucky tonight went in and scored 1.3 points per possession against an elite Mississippi State defense. How impressed were you with what Antonio Reeves and that Wildcat team did?
Yeah, I mean, Antonio Reeves does this. 27 points, was 6 of 7 from 2 of 5 from 3, made all 9 of his attempts at the free throw line. What's the line, Sam?
He might be the single best. Well, it was Shannon, but then that happened. The best FU scorer in the country.
Yeah, guy scores at will. He's one of the best shot creators in college basketball.
Just get him the ball, he'll get you a bucket.
And then you surround him with guys that are just like, despite freshmen, completely unselfish. They don't turn the ball over. They share it really well. And Reed Sheppard had 6 assists tonight.
Reed Sheppard, Rob Dillingham today. 10 assists, 2 turnovers between them.
It's just ridiculous.
Reed Sheppard is working his way towards being a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. If I told you that on November 5th, what would have been your reaction?
Like, absolutely no chance.
Yet here we are. He is number 1 in the country in true shooting percentage with 74.4 as a 6'3" freshman guard. Whenever I watch Kentucky, I'm just blown away by the spacing. It's just something I'm not used to at all.
Like, are we even sure that, like, Kentucky's playing their best?
No,
like,
they're not. That's the thing. Because I think they can be a lot better defensively when Adutero comes back.
That's exactly what I said on Marathon in March today. I think they're only scratching. They're not scratching. Certainly have room to go.
You're cutting out a lot.
Sorry, let me see if I can fix that.
But I'll kind of finish that note on the Kentucky team. Kentucky is a national title contender in my eyes, just because they have experience, they have efficiency, and they have length on the offensive end and on the defensive end. They really shoot it. They spread the floor. And they also have guys that can score in the mid-range. They can score in a lot of different ways. I see Kentucky as a genuine national championship contender. And I know that the metrics aren't really a huge fan of Kentucky. They're 16th in KenPom, but they're the number 4 offense in the country. They're the 9th best 3-point shooting offense in the country. They have so many different ways to beat you, whether it's Dillingham, whether it's Sheppard. And then DJ Wagner has had his games. And Antonio Reeves has had his games. And Edwards, if he comes on, oh my God. Imagine if Justin Edwards starts to break out. Yeah. Because we thought Justin Edwards was Kentucky's best freshman, and he's been their worst freshman. Imagine.
It's just so
interesting. Has been their worst freshman, but
I think it's just really interesting because when they're healthy, a lot of their lineups that I think are their best probably aren't lineups that involve the freshmen that were hyped up the most. Like I said today on Marathon to March, I think that like Dillingham and Sheppard, their usage needs to be higher. I mean, Sheppard's been arguably the most efficient player in the country on the offensive end, and he's playing something like 64% of the minutes.
And he's an elite defensive player.
Usage rate's like 17%.
I mean, that's kind of his game, though. Like he's not a high usage guy by nature, and that's fine. Like maybe next year, if he won't come back next year, but maybe if he were to come back next year, that would be his game. But I just don't see him as a guy that would ever truly be a high usage type guy. He is what he is.
But Dillingham is a high usage guy, and they're only playing him like 55% of the minutes.
Well, because he gets into foul trouble,
which he needs to stop doing.
He does. He absolutely does. But he is electric. 31% assist rate and just a 15% turnover rate is not what I would have expected from him this season, Jonathan. Moving forward.
By the way, real quick, just before we end this Kentucky segment, the best version of the Cats will be Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd on the floor and DJ Wagner on the bench, with Kentucky playing to go to the Final Four.
I don't disagree. Houston, big win today over Texas Tech. The Cougars, I know we talked about UConn and Purdue as the two best teams in the country. The Cougars are number 3.
Yeah, and I think they have a very clear argument for number 1, considering, their adjusted efficiency margin is like 4 points higher than the second best team in the country, according to Ken Pom.
Anything else to add?
I do think there's an aspect of them tricking the metrics a little bit, but this is an unbelievable defensive team.
Jamal Shed tonight, 29 and 10 with 2 turnovers. He took 15 shots. Sorry, he took 16 shots, 3 free throws, had 10 assists. That's how many possessions is that? That's it's like 30 something possessions, and he turned it over twice.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the best point guards in the country, and I think we need to talk about him a little bit more in those All-American conversations.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And Cryer didn't have the greatest game tonight, but he's a bucket. They have dudes who just give you in a level of physicality and just maturity that most teams can't reach. And they do it every single year. It's just amazing how Kelvin Sampson knows the system he wants. He knows the guys that will fit. And then whoever their guards are just turn into these superhuman scorers for some reason. You remember a couple of years ago when Sasser and Mark both got hurt, and the next day Kyler Edwards walked into the gym and he was an All-American?
Hey, was he better than post-Christmas break Jalen Blake's?
No, nobody is.
Anyway, let's stay in the state of Texas and talk about the Horns that are down in Austin. It's not looking good for our boy Rodney.
You're doing it wrong, by the way.
Really? Is it this?
Pinky and pointer finger.
Oh, I thought it was pinky and thumb.
That's call me.
All right. Anyway, Horns down right now.
Or whatever call me down means.
Tristan Newton. All right.
Call me down. I can make a lot of jokes right now, but I'm not going to.
By the way, I love how every team in the Big 12 has their hand signal.
Yeah.
What the hell is this?
What's Houston's? It's like this, right?
I don't know, something like that. And Baylor has whatever they do.
TCU.
Yeah. Anyway, in Austin, things are not very good for our boy Rodney Terry. UCF won their second conference game. Reminder: I owe Jonathan $5 if they win another.
Yeah.
which
is okay, because I don't think it's statistically possible for UCLA to win 28 games.
Well, that's only $1.
I think
I kept pushing that number. I knew I was gonna get you on that. As soon as it happened, I was like, all right, UCLA, I'm gonna put an outrageous number on this.
Yeah.
UCLA basically needs to win every game for the rest of the season, every tournament game, and every NCAA tournament game.
Hey, they won tonight.
With that number.
They won tonight.
They did?
Mm-hmm.
They won on the road at Arizona State. Embarrassing for the Sun Devils, given how hot they started Pac-12 play.
Mick Cronin, we will see you at the press conference.
What did he say?
I don't know. But he won, so.
Anyway, UCF beats Texas. Jalen Sellers scores 24 points, 5 rebounds in Austin.
Yeah.
How concerned is Texas even a tournament team?
No, they're not. And I really don't know how this could happen to a guy that could recruited 2 of Texas's starters from last season. I don't know how it could happen, Sam. I thought
Look, I like Tyrese Hunter. I like Max Asmus. I like Dylan Dessou. But like Kendall Weaver and Zarek Onyema, and like these are not guys who should be. These are not Big 12 caliber players.
Yeah, I mean, we said it in the offseason. This depth is terrible. It's absolutely dreadful. And like, I mean, Asmus is what he is. He doesn't really guard. He's a really good offensive player. Dylan Dessou, depending on sample size, is a really good player. Tyrese Hunter has always guarded his butt off. But like, the addition of Caden Shedrick like never really made sense to me. And then you fill out your roster with guys that like I frankly had like never even heard of.
Yeah,
it's not a good team. It's a team that could win in the Pac-12, team that could win in the Big 10. Can't win in the Big 12 with no legit superstars and no depth.
All right, I'm gonna talk some mid-major hoops, but Jonathan, go first. It's time for your
Valley updates. Interesting night in the Valley. Very interesting night in the Valley. We had a bunch of road teams get it done. Evansville, out of the 5 games in the Valley tonight, was the only team that was at home and managed to win. They take a 78-75 win over Valpo. Evansville, not great still, but definitely an improved team this season to keep an eye on. Murray State got a 15-point win at UIC, an arena that had like 10 people in it. Drake got a 77-56 win over Illinois State. Tucker DeVry had 25 points, 17 of those in the first half. Bradley, down 23 points, comes back to beat Southern Illinois 70-69. A balanced effort from the Braves, who got 15 out of Darius Hannah, Duke Dean, and Connor Hickman. Malavi Leon's not the greatest night, but still managed with 10 and 5. Not much off the bench. SIU, of course, 18 from Xavier Johnson, who's one of the best scorers in the country. AJ Ferguson was good as well, but Brian Mullen's squad could not close it out at home. Would have been a marquee win for them. And then Northern Iowa, who I believe, double checking this, yes, got smoked by Belmont at home earlier in the year. They get their revenge on the road in Nashville. A near triple-double for Nate Heist, 20 points, 10 boards, 8 assists. Bowen Bourne, 13 points. Didn't shoot it spectacular. His percentages are never the highest, but a good win for the Panthers and Ben Jacobson's team. Nonetheless, still like Belmont a lot. They need to get healthy. Jacoby Gillespie did not play tonight. That's it for your Valley update, and we'll wait for Mr. Fetterman to come back. There he is.
Not it for the Valley update, because I have some questions.
Okay, go for it.
Were you watching the SIU Bradley game?
I watched the end of it. I kind of had turned it off because, frankly, it was a 23-point game and I wanted to watch something closer.
How did SIU build that lead, and how did Bradley come back? What did they do?
Well, SIU built their lead because they got contributions from guys not named Xavier Johnson. AJ Ferguson was excellent in the first half. He's an 8-point per game scorer. I think he had like 12 in the first half for them. But down the stretch, I mean, Brian Wardle's defense just kind of kept stifling them. Xavier Johnson was getting decent looks, but couldn't hit a shot tonight, at least not at the rate he usually does. And, you know, Bradley isn't ever going to be the greatest offensive team as long as Brian Wardle's coaching there, but they have a bunch of guys that play off each other well. Duke Dean's really quick and hit a couple big shots down the stretch, including a pull-up 3 in transition. And, it was just Bradley grabbed the momentum and I saw you could not figure out how to slow them down. Connor Hickman has been really good in some key spots for them this year.
Yeah. And some more just boilerplate Valley type stuff. Drake just destroying Illinois State tonight.
Drake's looked a lot more like themselves lately.
I mean, they got killed by Belmont. They've now won 3 in a row, 2 straight road wins. How good is Drake? Like, Drake is. Do they have any chance at an at-large?
Probably not. Like,
I mean,
their metric rankings.
If they win out, I don't think you can keep them out.
Right, like 4 losses, probably you're going to get them in. But I think Drake, from a pure analytical and just watching them perspective, probably a worse team than last year. At the start of the season, they really were missing Roman Penn, but they started to figure it out. They're taking care of the ball a lot better. Tucker DeVry has taken yet another leap as a scorer. I mean, he's averaging 20 points a game right now, to go with 6 rebounds and nearly 4 assists. He is a superstar that probably will get NBA buzz as we come down the stretch here, and people start to figure out how good he is once again. But I just don't think Drake's metrics are going to be good enough for them to have a chance in that large. I think they'll be in the conversation, but they're one bad loss away from probably completely destroying their chances.
Okay, guys, I'm now going to talk about a team that might be the most under talked about in the country, maybe because I just don't think people realize how good they are. Shout out Alan Huss and the High Point Panthers. They are 15-4 after picking up a road win against Presbyterian today. Alan Huss has done an excellent job with this program. He is in his first season there. He was a Creighton assistant for the previous 6 years. He played at Creighton. He was an assistant at New Mexico as well. For 5 years, he was the head coach at La Lumiere. But his teams are so good offensively. They are the number 46 offense, the number 40 offense in the country, by far number 1 in the Big South. 121.5 offensive rating in Big South games. They've scored 85 points. They've scored 84 or more points in every game in conference play. They scored 90 the game before conference play. That makes 5 straight games with 84 or more points. We talked Indiana State yesterday about how great they are offensively. High Point is not the same. They don't do it the same way. They're not as good of a 3-point shooting team, but they just have dudes. They have dudes. They rebound. They're physical. They're big. They got Kamani Hamilton, who's a mismatch. They've got Duke Miles, who's been really good. Justin Joslin. I always say Justin. Joslin Bodo is a 7-foot freshman who's just a total mismatch for everybody. He's just so good on the inside. He's a monster rim protector as well. People are going to fall in love with High Point, just how many points they score down the road. And they're by a good margin, I would say, the best team in the Big South. They don't play Winthrop, the other top team in the Big South, until January 27th. But that's a Saturday. That game is at 4:00 in Rock Hill. It is a must-see.
Only 10 days away.
I'm sure that Brian Wilmer is going to be there. But keep your eye out for the High Point Panthers.
Yeah, I didn't realize how good of a year the Big South was having until today when I saw a tweet about it and looked it up. And High Point 127, Winthrop 146, Asheville 169, Radford 174, Longwood 164. I mean, that's a great year for the Big South.
By the way, High Point has not been top 200 in KenPom since 2016. They have not made the NCAA tournament Have they made it ever? They have not made the NCAA tournament ever. They did win 4 consecutive Big South titles under Scott Cherry in the regular season, but they never made it to the NCAA tournament. So NMTC, shout out to you guys. So in order for High Point, they have maybe the best chance of anyone to break the NMTC curse this year, I would say. Just some other housekeeping notes around mid-major basketball tonight. Lafayette is 5-0 in the Patriot League. Ryan Pettit hit a game-winning 3 tonight. Who was it? Robert Allen? Did Robert Allen have the game winner for North Texas? Yeah, Robert Allen had the game winner for North Texas. The Mean Green are 11-5. They have won 6 games in a row. They lost at the buzzer earlier this year to Fordham, and they win at the buzzer today against ECU. They have the number 32 defense in the country. Ross Hodge has done an excellent job there. They're 4-0 in the American. They won this game today without Reuben Jones and without John Buggs. They're super tough to play against. It's the same shit that we've seen over the past few years for them. Dean touched on it a little bit, but St. Bonaventure killed Rhode Island. They're really good still. There was a wild game in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, between Robert Morris and now 0-19 Detroit.
Oh, no, they didn't win?
No. It went to double overtime. Marquise Hastings had 31. TJ Wainwright had 30. Jaden Stone had 36. Marcus Tankersley had 29. That was a wild game.
That's crazy.
102-99 for Bobby Moe. They're 3-5 in the Horizon League. The Horizon League has already played 8 conference games. Oakland is 7-2. They lead that league. They've won 6 in a row. They play Green Bay on Thursday. Those are the top 2 teams in the conference, Jonathan. That is tomorrow night.
Green Bay is one of the top teams in the Horizon League.
They're 6-2.
I'm shocked.
Hey, that's what happens when you fire Will Ryan.
Like I was being serious about that. I'm shocked by that.
All right, Jonathan, do you have any thoughts on that game? Because we will be covering that game maybe to open the show tomorrow night.
On Green Bay?
It's the top 2 teams in the Horizon League, Jonathan. There is
I do not have any
nothing.
thoughts.
You do not realize how bad tomorrow's slate is.
Clearly, I do not.
The top game is considered Illinois-Michigan.
Oh, yeah, that's a rough one.
We will hopefully have Harrison Simeon on to talk Oregon-Colorado, but that's a very late game. So if we don't start the show until 12:30 Eastern, that's why.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a 10:30 Eastern game.
Honestly, I might just say skip it. Do the show directly after. Green Bay
Wright State
and Oakland at. Wait, no,
Green Bay plays Wright State tomorrow.
Oh, hold on.
Sorry, folks. We will be opening with UMass Lowell Albany instead.
I screwed that up.
Yeah, Green Bay doesn't play Oakland for like another week, I think.
Oh, because it's Oakland's next game, but it's next Thursday.
So Oakland gets like a week off before they play Green Bay.
And Green Bay has 2 games before that.
That's tough. I know who I'm picking to win that game.
Yeah. Oakland played tonight. Why would they play 2 nights in a row?
Well,
folks, this isn't just the top college basketball podcast for a reason.
We talk on a lot of subjects, including where Tyler Self is currently employed, Steven Izzo, and Australian recruits.
Will we mention his name?
Who will not be named because they didn't.
By the way, I'm surprised that we didn't mention one of the guys today when we were talking about Kentucky, but whatever.
Well, you know who is God knows where at this point.
USC Upstate upsets Longwood. Longwood's now 1-4 in the Big South after starting the season 12-1.
Oh, jeez.
They have lost 6 of 7. Justin Bailey had 16, so did Trey Broadnax.
All right, Sam, it's time. What's Jared Lucas's stat line in the first half?
What'd you say?
What's Jared Lucas's stat line in the first half?
9 points, 2 assists,
No.
3 rebounds.
He has 4 points, 1 rebound, 1 of 5 from the field, 0 of 4 from 3. Nevada trails San Diego State on the road, 24-37.
24-13.
24-37.
Say the winning score first.
I'm just reading it by the way it's read.
36 points tonight for Jameer Young, best point guard in the Big Ten.
Wasn't enough.
Yeah, Northwestern, led by Boo Boo. He's 20
Sean
points.
Harris-Smith had 0 points in 28 minutes. Are you kidding me?
Deshaun Harris-Smith is bad.
I'm so
He's a
disappointed.
freshman, but he's been bad as a freshman. I think he'll be really good in the future.
Are you ready to have the Kevin Willard conversation?
If he doesn't get Derek Queen.
I was ready to have this conversation, like, legit 2 years ago.
He didn't even have this job 2 years ago.
I know.
I never thought it was a good hire. But
Yeah, I didn't
bring him
either.
At least until he fails to get Derek Queen.
Yeah, I mean, really not much reason to go to either of those two schools right now.
Hey, Liam McNeely's going to Indiana, so there is reason to go there.
That's a good point. That is a good point. We do like this is a pro Liam McNeely pod.
We are Liam McNeely's biggest fans on his podcast. IUPUI over Purdue Fort Wayne tonight. In Fort Wayne, they were 20-point Ken Pom underdogs.
In the battle of the third and fourth best teams in the state of Indiana.
just the idea of IUPUI. Like that.
That's a funny school.
Which will not be this. I think it's just going to be Purdue Indianapolis next year. They're dropping the IU affiliation, I think.
Talk. I'll be back in 1 second.
Oh, we're done. The show's over.
Oh,
I'm outroing us right now.
okay.
That's it for Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Stealers. I have nothing else to add. Jonathan, do you?
No, I actually don't have anything else to add.
We'll see you tomorrow night. This was a great night's show, and we'll see what the plan is for tomorrow. But we will not be leading the show with Oakland versus Green Bay because that game doesn't happen until next Thursday. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.
Night.